My name is Jacob, and I know exactly how it feels to struggle with speaking English. I remember the countless times I understood what people were saying but couldn't find the right words to respond. I would freeze, my mind racing, but my mouth unable to catch up. It felt like an invisible barrier was holding me back, and no matter how much I studied, I still hesitated to speak. But I wasn't alone in this struggle. Over time, I met incredible people who faced the same challenge and overcame it with persistence and the right strategies. This is my story, and theirs, of how we conquered the fear of speaking English and built confidence in communication. I still remember the first time I tried to speak English in front of a native speaker. My heart pounded so loudly in my chest that I was sure everyone could hear it. My hands felt clammy, and my throat tightened as I struggled to push out a single word. I had spent years buried in English textbooks, acing grammar tests, and absorbing literature with ease, yet when I needed to form a simple sentence, my mind betrayed me. Words that once felt so fluid in my thoughts suddenly became an impossible puzzle, stuck somewhere between my brain and my lips. I felt a deep wave of embarrassment creeping over me, a mix of frustration and self-doubt gnawing at my confidence. The native speaker looked at me patiently, waiting for my response, but the longer the silence stretched, the more I wanted to disappear. Was I ever going to be able to speak English fluently? The question haunted me for years, replaying itself in every failed attempt, every moment of hesitation, and every opportunity one let slip away because I was too afraid to speak. But something inside me refused to give up, pushing me toward a journey of self-discovery, resilience, and eventually fluency. For years, I convinced myself that I simply wasn't good at speaking English. I was terrified of making mistakes, certain that people would judge me or even laugh at my awkward sentences. Every time I attempted a conversation, my mind became a battlefield of doubts and hesitations. Words that I knew so well in writing suddenly felt foreign, slipping through my grasp like grains of sand. I would start a sentence only to abandon it halfway, retreating into my comfort zone of silence. This fear didn't just hold me back from casual conversations. It affected my professional growth, my ability to form friendships, and my willingness to explore the world beyond my native language. But the frustration of being trapped in my own mind grew too overwhelming to ignore. I knew I couldn't go on like this forever. Something had to change, and that change had to start with me. No teacher, no textbook, and no miracle solution would suddenly make me fluent. It was my mindset that needed an overhaul. I had to redefine my relationship with English, see it as an evolving skill rather than a pass-or-fail test, and embrace the messy, imperfect process of learning to speak confidently. And so, with cautious determination, I began my journey to break free from this self-imposed barrier and reclaim my voice in English. The turning point came when I met Maria, a friend who had gone through a similar struggle. Maria had moved to an English-speaking country after years of studying English in school. She could read and write well but felt paralyzed when trying to speak. Conversations filled her with anxiety, and she often found herself avoiding interactions out of fear of embarrassment. But she refused to let that fear define her. Instead of giving up, she decided to take small steps every day to improve. She started by speaking to herself at home, narrating everything she did, brushing her teeth, making coffee, describing the weather. She listened to English podcasts, repeating sentences aloud, mimicking the intonation and rhythm of native speakers. At first, she felt ridiculous, but with time, her confidence grew. She set a goal to say at least one sentence in English to someone new each day, whether it was a store cashier or a fellow commuter. Slowly, these small moments built up, and her fear started to fade. Inspired by her determination, I decided to follow in her footsteps. I, too, spoke to myself in front of the mirror, describing my day, pretending I was having conversations. It felt unnatural at first, and I often stumbled over my words, but I persisted. The more I heard my own voice in English, the less intimidating it became. I even started recording myself and playing it back, noting areas where I could improve. Over time, I noticed a shift. What once felt like an impossible task became an exciting challenge, and for the first time, I felt like I was truly making progress. One of the biggest breakthroughs came when I joined an English conversation club. I was terrified at first, unsure if I would be able to keep up with the discussions or if my broken English would make me an outsider. But I soon realized that everyone there was just like me, nervous, self-conscious, yet determined to improve. The room was filled with individuals from different backgrounds, each carrying their own struggles and insecurities. Instead of criticizing one another, we built each other up with encouragement and understanding. I remember the first time I spoke in the group. My words came out clumsily, and I hesitated after every sentence, expecting someone to correct me. But instead of judgment, I was met with smiles and nods of support. Slowly, my confidence grew. I started speaking more, even daring to share personal stories and opinions. The moment I laughed at my own mistakes instead of cringing in embarrassment was a revelation. I understood that mistakes were not the enemy, they were stepping stones to progress, proof that I was actively learning and growing. With each session, I felt more liberated, as if I was shedding the heavy chains of self-doubt that had weighed me down for so long. The Conversation Club became more than just a learning space. It was a sanctuary where language barriers dissolved and where we all became bridges to each other's success. I also made an effort to surround myself with English as much as possible. I immersed myself in the language, making English an integral part of my daily routine. I listened to English music obsessively, not just as background noise, but as an active learning tool. I would write down the lyrics, repeat them over and over, trying to match the pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation of the singers. Some songs were fast and tricky, but that only pushed me to keep going. I also watched movies with subtitles, pausing frequently to repeat dialogues and mimic the actor's speech. I didn't just listen, I studied the way they spoke, their tone, their expressions, and the natural flow of conversation. It felt like a fun way to learn, and before I knew it, certain phrases started rolling off my tongue naturally. I even started thinking in English, sometimes narrating my day to myself as if I were a character in a movie. These small habits transformed the way I approached the language, turning it from something I feared into something I embraced wholeheartedly. But perhaps the most valuable lesson I learned was from a colleague named John. John was incredibly skilled at his job but faced an immense challenge when it came to English communication. He was a master of his craft, admired for his knowledge and expertise, yet when it came time to voice his thoughts in meetings, he often remained silent. Despite having brilliant ideas, he found himself hesitating, second-guessing his words before they even left his mouth. His nervousness would take over, paralyzing him in professional discussions. He feared that a single mispronounced word or poorly structured sentence would make him look incompetent, even though he was anything but. The fear of making mistakes kept him from contributing, and over time, he started feeling invisible in his workplace. He confided in me about the frustration he felt, how he would prepare ideas beforehand, only to let them slip away unspoken because of his lack of confidence in his spoken English. The weight of being overlooked, not because of a lack of skill but because of language barriers, began to affect his self-esteem. It was a struggle that seemed insurmountable, yet John was determined not to let it define him. Determined to change, John took a proactive approach. He found a language partner, someone who wanted to learn his native language in exchange for helping him with English. This partnership became a crucial turning point, opening new doors for him. They practiced speaking daily, discussing a vast array of topics, from work-related matters to personal aspirations and cultural differences. Initially, John struggled significantly, often pausing mid-sentence, his mind searching frantically for the right words. There were moments of deep frustration when he felt like he would never progress, but he refused to give up. He practiced late into the night, repeating sentences, mimicking native speakers, and even recording his voice to analyze his pronunciation. Slowly, his confidence began to grow. With each passing conversation, his pauses became shorter, his sentences more fluid. He even started to crack jokes in English, something he had never dared to do before. John's progress was not just in his speech but also in his mindset. He no longer feared making mistakes, and that, more than anything, fueled his rapid improvement. His language partner noticed the transformation and encouraged him to participate in more challenging conversations, pushing him beyond his comfort zone. John soon found himself actively engaging in discussions at work, contributing his thoughts without hesitation, and even mentoring new employees who faced similar struggles. His journey was a testament to perseverance and the power of consistent, dedicated practice. What started as a mere attempt to improve his English turned into a life-changing experience, strengthening his confidence and broadening his career prospects in ways he had never imagined.
John didn't stop there.
He took advantage of every opportunity to speak English, making a conscious effort to integrate it into his daily life. At work, he initiated small talk with colleagues at the coffee machine, gradually extending his conversations beyond just greetings. He actively participated in meetings, initially by asking questions and later by contributing his own ideas. To further refine his skills, he started practicing by giving short presentations to his team, slowly building up to more complex discussions. Beyond work, John sought new ways to immerse himself in the language. He started listening to English podcasts on his commute, challenging himself to summarize key takeaways afterward. He read English novels aloud, focusing on pronunciation and intonation. On weekends, he attended language exchange meetups, where he engaged with both native speakers and fellow learners, discussing diverse topics ranging from current events to personal growth. John also made significant changes in his home environment. He labeled household items with their English names, wrote daily reflections in English, and even switched his phone and computer settings to English to ensure he was constantly exposed to the language. Recognizing that speaking fluently required consistent, deliberate effort, he pushed himself to take on new challenges, like engaging in debates, storytelling, and even attempting to think entirely in English during the day. As he continued, John discovered the power of storytelling as a tool for fluency. He crafted personal anecdotes and practiced delivering them with expressive intonation and confidence. He even joined a local Toastmasters club, which provided a structured environment to refine his public speaking skills. These steps transformed not only his fluency but also his confidence, enabling him to communicate naturally and effectively in both professional and social settings. John also sought out opportunities outside of work to practice. He joined a local English-speaking book club, where members discussed literature in depth, forcing him to articulate his thoughts clearly in English. Additionally, he started volunteering at a community center where he helped non-native speakers like himself learn English, which in turn reinforced his own learning. He even started watching news reports and documentaries, challenging himself to summarize key points in his own words, further improving his speaking and comprehension abilities. To push himself even more, John began attending networking events, determined to engage in meaningful conversations with strangers. Initially, he struggled, often feeling overwhelmed in fast-paced discussions. But as he continued, he developed techniques to keep conversations flowing, asking open-ended questions, paraphrasing responses, and using body language to communicate effectively. Over time, his hesitations lessened, and he found himself not just participating in conversations but leading them with confidence. Determined to improve, John implemented a rigorous self-training routine. He recorded himself speaking, played it back, and meticulously analyzed his pronunciation, intonation, and fluency. He took notes on every small detail, how his tone fluctuated, where he stumbled, and which words he mispronounced. At night, he would re-watch recorded meetings, paying close attention to how native speakers structured their sentences and delivered their points with confidence. He even began shadowing, repeating dialogues from movies and interviews to mimic the speech patterns of fluent speakers. John also practiced storytelling, narrating his daily activities or summarizing books and articles in English to enhance his verbal fluency. He started journaling in English, expressing his thoughts on paper before reading them out loud, refining his ability to think in English rather than translating from his native language. To push himself further, he began participating in online forums and discussion groups where he could engage in written and spoken debates, allowing him to formulate and express his ideas more naturally. These daily exercises, though time-consuming, became the cornerstone of his fluency transformation, reinforcing his confidence and shaping him into a stronger communicator. To challenge himself further, John enrolled in an online public speaking course, where he was required to present on various topics. At first, the pressure was overwhelming, but he persisted. Each mistake became a lesson, and each success fueled his motivation. His commitment and persistence paid off. His boss and colleagues started noticing the transformation. They appreciated his growing contributions, and soon, he was entrusted with more responsibilities, allowing him to step into leadership roles. His fluency in English had become his strength rather than his weakness. Over time, John not only overcame his fear of speaking but also became a mentor to other non-native English speakers in his workplace, encouraging them to step out of their comfort zones just as he had done. Seeing John's journey unfold before me was nothing short of transformative. His story illustrated that mastering a language is far beyond just learning vocabulary or grammar rules. It's about developing unwavering confidence, pushing past self-doubt, and embracing every opportunity to step outside one's comfort zone. I watched as John turned his fear of speaking into fuel for growth, demonstrating that fluency isn't something that miraculously happens overnight. It is cultivated through relentless practice, repeated exposure, and a fearless attitude toward making mistakes. His success was living proof that with the right mindset and sheer dedication, language barriers can be shattered, leading to doors opening in ways he had never imagined. It was a lesson I carried with me, one that reshaped how I approached my own learning journey and fueled my determination to keep striving for fluency. Hearing John's story made me realize that fluency wasn't about knowing every word in the dictionary. It was about confidence, persistence, and the willingness to step out of my comfort zone. Inspired by John's determination, I embarked on my own journey of language mastery. I sought out a language partner, engaging in conversations that gradually became more fluid and natural. I also started recording my voice, meticulously listening to my own speech to identify areas for improvement. The first few times were painfully awkward, my accent thick and my sentences disjointed, but I refused to let embarrassment deter me. I experimented with different speech exercises, shadowing native speakers from podcasts and mimicking the way they articulated words. Over time, I noticed my pronunciation improving, my sentences flowing more naturally, and my confidence skyrocketing. To further challenge myself, I began participating in online forums, engaging in text and voice chats with native speakers. Each interaction, no matter how imperfect, added another layer to my fluency, reinforcing that progress was built through consistent, fearless practice. Another inspiring figure in my journey was Alex, a fellow student who had initially struggled with class discussions. He, too, feared speaking up, afraid of being judged for his accent or grammar mistakes. But instead of letting fear dictate his progress, Alex took a proactive approach. He started by practicing alone, reading aloud and recording himself to analyze his speech. He would repeat sentences multiple times, adjusting his tone, pronunciation, and pace to better match native speakers. This meticulous self-evaluation allowed him to pinpoint areas for improvement without the pressure of an audience. To reinforce his learning, Alex also started journaling in English, writing about his daily experiences, thoughts, and aspirations. He would then read his entries aloud, noting how written English translated into spoken form. On top of that, he made flashcards with tricky words and phrases, practicing them throughout the day to make his vocabulary more accessible in real conversations. Alex also incorporated technology into his learning. He used language learning apps that provided real-time pronunciation feedback and participated in online discussion forums where he could engage in text-based conversations before transitioning to voice chats. He even joined virtual language exchange programs, speaking with native English speakers from different countries, which exposed him to various accents and expressions. By diversifying his learning methods, Alex transformed what once seemed like a daunting challenge into an engaging, dynamic process of self-improvement. Determined to gain more experience, Alex pushed himself to engage with classmates in study groups. Initially, he contributed minimally, often feeling self-conscious about his grammar and pronunciation, fearful that others might judge him. However, he soon realized that his classmates were not there to criticize but to support and learn together. Encouraged by their patience and camaraderie, he gradually opened up, asking questions, sharing insights, and eventually taking on leadership roles in discussions on topics he was passionate about. As he saw his own progress, his enthusiasm for learning grew. He found that mistakes were not obstacles but stepping stones to improvement. With each mispronounced word corrected and each phrase refined, he became more confident, understanding that fluency is built on persistence, not perfection. The environment of mutual encouragement helped him break free from his fears and embrace every conversation as a chance to grow. Seeking even more immersive experiences, he joined a local soccer team, which proved to be an unexpected but invaluable learning tool. The informal and friendly atmosphere of the team allowed him to engage in spontaneous, everyday conversations without the pressure of a formal setting. He practiced giving team instructions in English, discussing strategies, and even cracking jokes with his teammates. During post-game celebrations and casual hangouts, he was exposed to different accents, slang, and colloquial expressions that he would have never encountered in a classroom. He learned to adapt his speech dynamically, understanding the importance of tone, rhythm, and emotion in communication. These moments helped him become more comfortable with conversational English, strengthening his ability to think and respond in the language naturally. Over time, he found himself naturally integrating English into his thought process, no longer translating from his native language but instead forming ideas and responses instinctively in English. This transformation gave him newfound confidence, allowing him to take on even greater linguistic challenges in everyday life and work. Wanting to accelerate his learning further, Alex began watching live sports commentary in English, mimicking the expressions and enthusiasm of professional commentators. He paid close attention to their intonation, speed, and choice of words, practicing in front of the mirror and later attempting to replicate their style when discussing matches with friends. Slowly but surely, his speaking abilities improved, reinforcing the idea that real-life engagement and passion-driven learning were key to mastering a new language. Recognizing that he needed even more exposure, Alex decided to immerse himself further. He started attending local community events, where he would have no choice but to converse with English speakers. At first, the interactions were brief and filled with awkward pauses, but he gradually learned how to navigate conversations more smoothly. He made a habit of carrying a small notebook to jot down new phrases and expressions he encountered, reviewing them later to solidify his understanding. In addition to structured learning, Alex also embraced entertainment as a tool for improvement. He began listening to stand-up comedy routines to understand humor, timing, and cultural references in English conversations. He paid close attention to the way comedians delivered their punchlines, how they paused for effect, and the rhythm of their speech. He would replay jokes and practice saying them aloud, trying to match the tone and delivery style. He followed sports commentators, noting their dynamic speech patterns and enthusiasm, and attempted to mimic them when discussing games with his friends. To deepen his understanding of conversational flow, he also started watching talk shows, observing how guests and hosts interacted, and tried to replicate their exchanges. These unconventional methods made learning enjoyable and helped Alex develop a more natural, expressive, and confident way of speaking. Over time, he challenged himself to participate in public speaking groups, where he could practice articulating his thoughts more clearly. He even started writing short speeches on topics he was passionate about and practicing them in front of a mirror. Each step reinforced his progress, proving that language learning is not just about vocabulary and grammar, but about building confidence and communication skills through diverse and engaging experiences. To further accelerate his learning, Alex began watching English-language sports commentaries, repeating phrases and mimicking intonations to build fluency. He even set a goal to initiate at least 3 conversations in English every day, whether it was with teammates, classmates, or even strangers at the grocery store. Slowly but surely, he became more comfortable, proving that engaging in activities you love, especially in immersive environments, can be a powerful way to practice a new language. His journey reinforced the idea that confidence in speaking comes from consistent exposure and stepping outside of one's comfort zone. Sarah's story was another testament to the power of persistence. Moving to an English-speaking country for work, she faced a harsh reality. She could understand everything her colleagues said but struggled to respond fluently. Conversations that should have been simple became stressful, and she often found herself hesitating, afraid of making mistakes. Determined to improve, she adopted a structured approach. She started speaking to herself in the mirror daily, practicing different topics to simulate real-life conversations. She recorded her speech, analyzing her pronunciation and fluency, identifying areas that needed improvement. To push herself further, she actively participated in office discussions, even when she felt nervous. She set personal goals, such as contributing at least one meaningful comment in every meeting. Seeking professional guidance, she enrolled in an online speaking course where instructors provided real-time feedback and customized exercises tailored to her weaknesses. Her dedication and consistency paid off. She began expressing herself more naturally, her hesitation diminished, and she even started leading meetings confidently. Her boss took notice, praising her efforts and offering her leadership opportunities that had once seemed out of reach. Sarah's journey proved that persistence, coupled with deliberate practice, can transform a struggle into a strength. From these experiences, I learned some crucial lessons that transformed my approach to learning English. First, speaking every day is essential. Even if you don't have a conversation partner, talk to yourself or record your voice. Second, finding a supportive community makes a huge difference. Whether it's a conversation club, a study group, or a casual chat with friends, practicing in a non-judgmental environment helps build confidence. Third, incorporating fun activities like music, movies, and sports can make the learning process enjoyable and sustainable. Lastly, embracing mistakes as part of the journey is the key to real progress. Looking back, I see how much I've grown. I no longer fear speaking in English. In fact, I embrace it as a fundamental part of my identity. What once felt intimidating and frustrating has now become a source of joy and connection. I've made lasting friendships, expanded my professional horizons, and gained confidence in ways I never imagined. All of this was possible because I refused to let fear dictate my journey. To anyone struggling with speaking English, I want to share this: don't give up, even when progress feels slow. Keep practicing, stay motivated, and trust in your ability to improve. Embrace every conversation as a learning opportunity, celebrate small victories, and be kind to yourself along the way. Fluency is not about never making mistakes, it's about pushing forward despite them. Each word spoken, no matter how imperfect, is a step toward mastery. Your journey to fluency is uniquely yours, and every effort you make brings you closer to achieving your goals. Believe in yourself, and you'll be amazed at how far you can go. If this journey has inspired you, I invite you to take the next step with me. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with others who might be on the same path. By engaging with this community, you'll gain access to more tips, real-life experiences, and valuable resources to help you expand your vocabulary and master English professionally. Let's learn and grow together, one word, one sentence, and one conversation at a time.